Hey guys, it's Ryan. Recently, I made a trip up to Six Flags Over Georgia in Atlanta, Georgia. I rode all the coasters that were open when I was there, and the only two I didn't get to ride were the Riddler Mindbender and Joker Funhouse coaster. Overall, I enjoyed the park's lineup, except for a few coasters which I'll get into in a second. But before I begin, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. It helps me out a ton. Now, with all that being said, let's get right into it. Okay, coming in at number 9, I have Georgia Scorcher. This was my first ever stand-up coaster, and it may just be my last. I thought this ride was just awful. It was painful, and it didn't do much for me. I really just didn't care for it at all. At number 8, I have the Mine Train. I expected a little more from this ride. The layout was a little fun, however, the transitions and the actual track was not. The transitions were very rough, and the hard plastic seating on the trains does not help with this. However, I enjoyed the layout, and the last drop was fun. The scenery was also pretty great on this ride. For number 7, I have the Great American Scream Machine. This ride was the very first Six Flags wooden coaster. I didn't know that fun fact going into this, and so that was a nice bit of history I learned before getting on the ride. First drop and the airtime hill following was great. It's also a very long ride. However, for me, it was the most painful ride in the park after the first airtime hill. Every valley hurt so badly. After every hill, which I didn't get much airtime in, I got a ton of pain. The only reason this ride isn't last is because I enjoyed the first drop. I highly recommend you don't ride this coaster if you have a bad back or neck. At number 6, I have Blue Hawk. Now, this ride surprised me. I was in the front row, and maybe that's why, but this ride was glass smooth for me. However, the transitions again suck. I banged my head very hard on the train after the first drop into the first inversion. I just don't like this ride that much. I'm more of an airtime guy, and this coaster was really just an inversion coaster. Okay, those were the rides that I wasn't too impressed with. They were all pretty old rides, but I will say Blue Hawk and Georgia Scorcher had a newer coat of paint, so they didn't look terrible at least. But the next 5 rides I enjoyed a ton. Coming in at number 5, we have Batman the Ride. This was my most intense ride of the day by far. From start to finish, it was relentless and super intense. I'm not a fan of super intense and rough coasters. I much prefer hang time and airtime, but I can appreciate how non-stop this ride was. Towards the end of the ride, my feet even started to tingle a little bit. At number 4, I have Daredevil Dive. This ride was my second ride I rode at the park, and I thought it was great. The drop was fun, and it ejected me out of my seat a little bit. Then the layout was nice and smooth with some inversions and loose theming. At the end of the ride, you come into a barrel roll. Now, at this point in the ride, you've lost almost all your speed, so this element was amazing. It provides awesome hang time, and it was by far my favorite element on the ride. At number 3, I have Superman Ultimate Flight. This ride really surprised me, and I just really enjoyed it. Firstly, I want to talk about the pretzel loop on the coaster. I thought it was great, and it was pretty intense, and I even grayed out at the end of it. After this element, it's a nice smooth ride that plays with the terrain and goes in and out of tunnels. It's just a fun ride, and I really liked it. Now, I could go back and forth between numbers 2 and number 1. I really both enjoyed the coasters, and people could say one is better than the other. However, I just thought number 2 should be Goliath. I rode the ride in the front and back rows quite a bit. I liked both rows, but I liked the front a bit better, I think. I think the front provided a better floated airtime on the bigger hills. The back sort of gave you airtime only on the second half of the hills, but it was a little stronger airtime in the back. Now, after these hills, you go into a super unique element. The element is really what makes it stand out from other B&M hypercoasters. The element is a downward helix, and it's super intense. I grayed out at the end of it almost every time, and it was a great turnaround element. After this, you go into some more airtime hills, and then it loops you around over the entrance to the parking lot and back to the last stretch full of airtime hills. These are great, and it's an awesome way to end the ride. Compared to Mako, this finale, in my opinion, is just so much better, and it makes Mako seem almost overrated. Now, with that being said, I still prefer Mako as the drop and the first 3/4 of the ride are much better and give much better sustained airtime. However, Goliath is a great ride. But now, let's get to my number 1. Okay, my number 1 is Twisted Cyclone. I just love this ride from the moment it left the station. It starts out with some fun little bunny hills right out of the station. After these bunny hills, it goes into the lift hill. Then comes my favorite part of the ride by far, the drop. It's super good, and it threw me out of my seat every time. This drop really surprised me considering how small it was. After the drop, at the bottom you get your picture taken, and then you go into what I call RMC's version of a banana roll. This element was really quirky and fun, but after that comes a downward outer banked hill. This element was also great and provided great airtime. The next lap of the coaster is just pure ejector airtime. Every hill is amazing and it throws you out of your seat. All of these reasons are why this ride is my favorite ride in the park. Well, this has been my list. I would love to hear if your favorite ride in the park if you've been, so let me know in the comments down below. I would also like to know what other parks you'd like to see in this series. I've now done Six Flags Over Georgia and Dollywood, so let me know if there's any parks you'd like to see ranking the coasters. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like as it helps me out a ton. With all this being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.